as far as they're concerned. Now, I'll start off by saying they are one of the more popular animals here in the zoo. They are quite the little film stars, being seen in children's films and TV documentaries, and dare I mention it, adverts now as well. So they are becoming increasingly popular. Now, despite what the adverts suggest, they're not Russian. They actually come from South Africa. Now, meerkats are a type of mongoose. Particularly, they come from places like the Kalahari Desert. So very hot, harsh places to live in the wild where they come from. So they've had to adapt in a number of ways in order to survive in these conditions. Now, firstly, looking at our meerkats here, you'll be able to tell that they are a rather group animal. They live in a nice big family group. In the wild, they live in groups of 10 to 20. In fact, here at Bristol Zoo, we have 12 individuals at the minute, so it's a fairly average-sized family group with lots of room to expand and grow in this new enclosure that they've got now. Now, meerkats display quite a few interesting behaviours which help them to survive in harsh conditions out in the wild. Now, some of these behaviours are known as being altruistic behaviours, and this is where they go out of their way to help one another in a way that doesn't directly help themselves. So one of these behaviours is to do with babies, and they'll actually babysit these youngsters even when they're not their own. Now, within the family group, they're all related, and you tend to have one alpha pair, and these will be the only two to breed. Now, I use the word tend to because there are some circumstances, depending on the family dynamics and the position of the female, she will sometimes let another female become alpha as well and breed next to her. But generally, it's just the two alpha pair who will be the only two to breed. The other individuals, as I say, they're related, and they'll stick around to help the raising of new youngsters. Now, babysitting, of course, it means that mum, she can go off and get her own bit of food and a bit of rest and relaxation, hopefully. But this means she can keep herself nice and strong and fit for further litters, but also to look after her family and guide the family. So that's very important. Now, whilst the other individuals are looking after the babies, so what they're doing is keeping them nice and warm. They're also trying to protect them from predators. But also it has been shown in some circumstances, other females in the group are able to lactate, so to produce milk for the youngsters even when they're not their own. So when this occurs, obviously this is very exceptional behaviour, as well as mum going off and knowing that her youngsters are being looked after while she's away. They are sometimes also being fed as well, which is a great thing for their survival and their success. Now, the babysitting actually continues as the youngsters get older, which is something we generally take for granted with our own children. But animals will generally let their youngsters learn through trial and error. They get to a certain age and then they go off and learn their life lessons, sometimes the hard way. But meerkats will actually actively teach their young how to do things and try and make them as successful and well prepared to survive in the wild. Now, some of these behaviour lessons, well, they'll go off with the adults and they'll learn things such as foraging. Now, you saw them foraging on a few crickets at the start of the talk, and they're going to have some more at the end of the talk as well. But they need to be taught how to do this, to go out and look for grubs and bugs in the dirt, but also how to deal with some bigger prey items. Now, the meerkats, well, they are carnivores. They will eat a variety of food sources, such as small birds and reptiles. Really, they'll make the most of anything they come across, including more dangerous items such as scorpions. Now, the meerkats here, despite being very small, they have been shown to have immunity to the venom of a scorpion sting. However, they are still very careful when dealing with them, particularly when the youngsters are around. So what the adults will do is they'll actually bite the tip of the tail off of the scorpion. They'll then hand it down to the youngster whilst they're teaching them how to deal with it themselves. So they can learn how to deal with the scorpion without the risk of being stung themselves, which is very wise on the adult's part. Now also they'll be taught other lessons such as how to stand up on your back legs. Now the adults make it look very easily. They can stand up on their back legs on a nice high rock like this one here for up to an hour at a time. But you'll realise when you're watching the youngsters learning how to do this that it's obviously a learned behaviour is the balance. They often go rolling over backwards, so the adults will teach them on the floor. They'll then teach them to climb up nice and high onto these lookout posts, and this is then sentry behaviour which they're teaching them here. Now you can see these meerkats having a good look around. So he's looking for anything dangerous, any predators heading his way. So he'll be scanning the horizon, looking for any land predators. He'll be checking the ground around, making sure there's no things like snakes around, but also looking directly up in the sky as well for birds of prey. Now, although we've got some meerkat here having a bit of a lookout, they do have the instinct to look out here, and they definitely respond to things. But you'll notice when there's food about, they all dash down, they're all suddenly distracted by the force of food. So they're not as focused on it as wild meerkats would be. You'd always have an individual, at least one individual looking out. Because the idea is, whilst all the other members of the family are around looking for food with their heads down on the ground, that one meerkat's going to be looking and checking their back. So although they're in an open enclosure here, they've never been exposed to predators. We do have birds of prey, but they've never come down to the zoo. So as far as these meerkats are concerned here in Bristol Zoo, police helicopters are by far the scariest thing they've ever seen. When they come flying across, the alarm calls sound and they all quickly dash inside and hide behind the window, watch and wait for it to go away before they come back out again. So they've got the instinct to respond. I'm just not entirely sure what they're meant to be responding to. But this is exactly what would happen in the wild if there was a predator to approach. The meerkat on sentry duty would sound the alarm call. He'd be the first one to see it. So he'd sound the alarm call and let the rest of the family know. Now he'll actually sound a different alarm call for different threats. Now if the threat was a lion, you get many of these in South Africa, he'd sound an alarm call, but the family wouldn't need to react. Basically they'd tell the rest of the family, hey guys, there's a lion around, keep an eye on him, make sure he doesn't get too close, but he's not going to hunt you, so you can carry on staying where you are. Now if the threat was a snake, well the adults will actually get together and mob the animal to chase it away. Now this is very dangerous, of course. The snakes out there are highly venomous, but they don't want the risk of a snake going down into their tunnels and meeting it in the dark in the middle of the night, so they'll actually risk their lives to chase it away. However, if the threat was something like a bird of prey, just as I said with the helicopters here, the alarm calls sound and they all very quickly zoom into safety. In the wild it would be a nice tunnel system. They do have a few which they're starting to dig here and also inside, but as you can see they've also got the luxury of a heated indoor enclosure here, so they make the most of that here. Now, if you have a look at the meerkats, you'll see they've got a few physical features which help them in tough conditions as well. You should notice on their front feet they've got some nice long claws. Now these are non-retractable, they help for foraging around, for digging their tunnel systems and for climbing up nice and high onto their lookout posts. Have a look at their faces as well. You'll notice around their eyes they've got these dark circles. Now we don't need them this time of the year, but these dark circles act in a very similar way to us wearing sunglasses. The black actually helps to absorb some of the glare from the sun, so it means when they're looking directly up into the sky, particularly in the Kalahari Desert, at that very bright sunshine, any reduction in the glare from the sun makes it a little bit easier to spot birds of prey flying overhead, and of course that will help with their survival in getting away. Another useful feature on the meerkats is their ears. They've actually got ear flaps which can close off the ear canal. Particularly useful when you're foraging around dirt and dust and debris, particularly the youngsters who tend to sit behind the adults waiting for some food to come flying their way. They usually get a face full of dirt. So by being able to close their ear canal, it stops any dirt and debris going down and causing an infection. Now, all of these features, both physical and behavioural, help them to do very well out in the wild. In fact, they're one of the few animals you'll see in the zoo today which are not considered endangered. They're here, as I said at the start of the talk, just because they're very, very popular and people love watching them, and I can certainly agree with that one. Now, another reason why they're doing very well out in the wild is there are not too many people living out in the Kalahari Desert. We as humans are not adapted for life in tough conditions, so we're not out there destroying their homes and their habitat like we are with some of the other animals you'll see around the zoo. So luckily, as I say, they are doing extremely well. Now they're waiting patiently because they know the minute I stop talking they've got some more crickets to be had, so I'm going to wrap up my talk there. I'll go around the other side of the enclosure and scatter the food around on their tunnels on the dome day, so you can watch them foraging around that area. If you have any questions or queries, do feel free to come for a chat. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of your day here at Bristol Zoo. Thank you for supporting us today, and we hope to see you.
She already told me.